Hey guys, and welcome back and happy Sunday. And now for something a little bit different. Here we are with episode 40, guys. It's always good to be doing these things, and it's always good to see everybody out there. I hope everybody is enjoying a wonderful weekend. We finally got a little bit of a break in our weather here in New Jersey. When I say a little bit of a break in our weather, I mean it's not 96 degrees and humid, it's only 85 degrees and humid. So I'll take what I can get, though. Beggars can't be choosers. But I hope you guys are having a good weekend and you're seeing some fun stuff at the movies. Maybe you're getting out and going for a walk, going for a dip in the pool, or if you're lucky enough to be by the ocean, take advantage of it because before you know it, at least if you live on the East Coast, you're going to be stuck in that miserable cold weather where it's 30 degrees and we're all freezing. So, as much as I complain about the humidity, I guess, there's got to be a little bit of a balance in Mother Nature, so to speak. But today, guys, I'm pretty excited because I'm going to be talking about yet another Giuseppe Tornatore film, and that is 1995, The Star Maker. This is a really cool one. It's a film that, unfortunately, I feel like doesn't get talked about nearly enough when we talk about Giuseppe Tornatore. When you talk about a guy like Tornatore, like last week I talked about The Legend of 1900, which was his first English film. This film's in Italian, and like I said, it was shot in '95. It's his fifth film, and it's a really interesting one, and I think it's definitely worth seeking out. I'm going to go into some of my thoughts later on in the conversation, so I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. If you guys are interested in watching this film, I would say the best route to go if you want a physical copy. Okay, I will say, unfortunately, there are no Blu-rays of this film yet. It just didn't come out on Blu-ray for whatever reason, or at least that I could find. But if you go on eBay, they have people selling it for somewhat reasonable prices. For some reason, Amazon people seem to want an arm and a leg for it. But if you're just curious, you can also go on to good old YouTube, and someone was kind enough to upload the movie. So definitely check it out on YouTube, see if you like it. And if you do, pick up a physical copy. Got to support that physical media, guys. Like I said, I think it's a good one. I think all of Tornatore's films, I don't think he's had a miss. I've seen some of his later films that some people tend to not be quite as kind to. Um, but even the films within his filmography that some might categorize as maybe lesser films, they're still pretty damn strong films. So that says quite a bit about a filmmaker, at least as far as I go. I say that that's something to be proud of. But before I get into the film, guys, I figure I'd start off by just talking to you guys a little bit about some stuff I had the opportunity to watch. There wasn't a ton of stuff. I saw, believe it or not, and I know you guys are going to laugh at me because most of the world has probably seen this before me, but The Last Unicorn, an animated movie. Surprisingly, it was on Tubi. And for those of you that have seen it and are interested in animated films, apparently there's a 4K coming out at the end of August. So definitely look out for that. And it's a really beautiful movie, guys. The animation is fantastic. I love old school animation. It's by Jules Bass and Arthur Rankin. They did the Hobbit animated movie back in the '70s, which I absolutely adore with every fiber of my being. They did like Frosty the Snowman and a bunch of those. They did a ton of stuff over the years. And this one is no different. It's a really special movie. Basic premise is a unicorn thinks she's the only one out there in the entire world, and she sets off on this magical journey to try to figure out if she's the only one in the world that's left of her kind. And it's just a really sweet movie. It's got some really beautiful songs. Um, I think the dialogue is really awesome as well, really well written. And you got a cast of like people like Mia Farrow and Alan Arkin and Jeff Bridges and all these great people. Christopher Lee, Angela Lansbury. You just got a really well-rounded out cast. Definitely worth seeking out. And it's not going to be for everybody. I know some people, don't like animation. Fuck those people. No, no, seriously. If you don't like animation, you're perfectly entitled to like that. You know, um, I grew up reading fantasy. That was my first love, fantasy, sci-fi, probably comic books like Archie and Jughead, Spider-Man, then moved on to other stuff. But my heart will always be in fantasy. And I think resisted this one for a while just because I wasn't sure exactly how kiddish it was going to be. Like I wasn't sure if it was going to be something on the level of like something stupid, and they were just going to be like, okay, it's going to be a pot shot at the fantasy genre, and it's going to be just like this total kid thing where you just can't get into it. Um, because I love my fantasy, and even though I don't mind silly fantasy, I wanted something that was going to have some meat on its bones, some substance, and I think this film really has a lot of substance. It has a lot to say. It just really checks off all the boxes and highly worth seeking out. So it was a good first time watch for me. I'm really glad I discovered this film, even if it did come out in 1982. Definitely check it out. Um, Probably wouldn't show it to your 3 or 4 year old kids. It's probably they're probably keeping with Despicable Me and some of those other tamer fare. But I think when a kid hits 7 or 8 years old, maybe younger, depending on your kid, and you want to introduce them into the world of fantasy, I would say this and The Hobbit or the animated Hobbit are great ways to introduce them into that world. So again, check that out. Next, I watched a movie on Prime called The Wolf and the Lion. I can double check, so don't. I shouldn't say it's based off a true story. I think it's based off a true story. I thought I read that, but I didn't double check, fact check that. But it's called The Wolf and the Lion, and the premise is you have a young woman who's graduating from a music school. Her father dies. He has this huge woodland property in Canada. Um, and he has a little cabin and so whatnot. And she goes to attend to the affairs and check in on the house before she has to go back to her school. She's applying for this grant to get into this big program, this symposium. And she goes there and she runs into Graham Greene. You guys might know him. His name is in the movie. His name is Joe. He's been in a ton of stuff. Green Mile, Dances with Wolves. He was in Tar that came out in 2020. Molly's Game. Um, he's a personal friend of the family. She's known for years. Alma's the girl. Kind of getting ahead of myself. Um, and she plays Molly. No, yeah, Alma's the girl. The actress is named Molly Kuntz. I'm probably getting that name wrong, Molly, so I apologize. You guys might know her from Widows, the movie that came out in 2018. Steve McQueen directed it. And she was also in a show that's on Peacock right now called The Irrational. Um, I've seen a couple episodes. It's pretty decent. I didn't recognize her in it, but I wasn't really looking for her. This is really the first thing that I can really say I saw her in. But anyway, so the premise is she goes to this woodland area in Canada to settle her father's affairs. While she's there, there's a wolf on the property that seems very tame. And when she talks to her neighbor Joe and friend Joe, played by Graham Greene, he tells her that the wolf had kind of connected with her father, and the wolf ended up showing up quite a bit. Well, one day the wolf shows up, and not only does the wolf show up, um, but the wolf brings a cub into her house. So what ends up happening is there's these guys that are tracking the wolf. They want to put it into the sanctuary because this particular white wolf, I don't know the breed, guys, but this particular white wolf is unfortunately in danger of becoming extinct. So the wolf goes to protect her cub, and she ends up actually like just walking right into the house with her cub and making herself at home. And surprisingly, she gets along quite well with the character Alma. Um, Now, if that wasn't crazy enough as it is, then we're introduced to a lion cub. Yes, that's right, a lion cub. Um, we see a plane that's flying above the air. It crashes. Inside that is a lion cub. Um, Earlier in the story, just a little bit, basically, we find out that the lion cub was poached from its mother in Africa, and it's going to be sent to a circus. So before you know it, our character Alma finds the lion cub, and of course she decides to bring it into the house because, of course, why wouldn't any rational person do that, right? Um, but she ends up kind of trying to raise the lion cub and the wolf. Some things happen. I don't want to give too much away, but basically, she ends up going to the hospital because she hurts herself. The authorities get turned on to the fact that she is a lion cub and a wolf, and they get separated. Um, Before all that happens, the lion cub and the wolf cub end up becoming best friends. Something happens to the mother, which I won't go into. Don't worry, she doesn't die, but does something does happen to the mother of the wolf. And it's just this really sweet story, guys. And I wish I double checked, but I'm pretty sure it is based partly in truth. But like I said, this is The Wolf and the Lion. Came out in 2021, and it's a fun family fare. Depending on the age of the kids, I think you can watch it and get a kick out of it. I enjoyed it. I thought the acting was good. I'm gonna look for more stuff from Molly Kunz. I'm sorry, Molly. I know I'm getting that name wrong. And of course, Graham Greene, you really can't go wrong with. Those are the major players. I didn't go into everybody in the movie, guys, because I don't think it's really important. But it's on Prime, so if you have Prime, check it out. Um, Next is another animated one, guys. I ended up watching a lot of animated stuff this week, and it wasn't intentional, really. It just kind of just happened that way. I watched the show on Netflix with my better half. I called Exploding Kittens, and I know ridiculous name. I like ridiculous names. It lured me in, and as I was doing my homework for this, looking it up, I'm like, that sounds familiar. And apparently, for those of us that are like into card games or board games and that kind of stuff, apparently there is a card game called Exploding Kittens, which I've never played. So this was created by two guys, Matthew Inman and Shane Kasawaski, and I'm getting that last name wrong, Shane, so I do apologize. Um, the premise of this show is basically God is fucked up. He's not doing things the way he should be. Apparently, the devil is the same thing. She's not doing things the way she should be. So their superiors basically send them back to Earth. But the twist is they're sent back to Earth in the form of cats. Yes, cats. And they each have a mission. One is to make, and I can't remember the family's name. I should have wrote this down. I thought I did. There's a particular family that's going through a lot of stuff. Um, and the cat that's God is supposed to make their lives better and help them. Of course, the devil is supposed to corrupt them and make their lives worse. Um, I'm doing a very bad job of explaining that, but it's such a ridiculous premise. Don't worry about my bad explanation, guys. Um, just watch it. It's on Netflix. It's pretty funny. I had a really good time with it, so definitely check that out. Um, then on Wednesday, I had a rare treat. I got a chance to see. Now, I'd seen this movie years ago, back in '99, but my local theater was showing Princess Mononoke. Um, and I had seen that years ago back in '99. I live in Jersey. I'm in Central Jersey, and the nearest art theater is about 45 minutes away. So it's kind of a pain in the ass, guys. So I don't normally do the art films unless for some reason that by some miracle they play down at the local theater. Um, Back in '99, I about 5 or 6 years earlier, I just started watching a lot of um, anime, reading a lot of manga. But of course, I had never seen anything on the big screen. And when this came out, I remember reading about it. I don't remember reading, guys, before the days of just looking up a trailer on YouTube and all that stuff. I used to get the Village Voice and the New York Times every Friday. Both great papers. Both had really good reviews. The New York Times is so fucking expensive. Even back then, guys, I would only pick it up just on Fridays. But on Fridays, they did have a really good review section of what was coming out in theaters and a lot of stuff that I had never heard of before, a lot of stuff that would never play by me, that kind of stuff. They would cover theater, all different kind of stuff, different exhibitions, art exhibitions, what was going on in New York, of course. And the same thing with the Village Voice. Another really, really good reviews, really good articles about what was going on in the area in New York. So lo and behold, I picked it up and I saw this big full ad sheet for a movie called Princess Mononoke. And I was like, oh, I like anime. And then I'm reading the review, and basically, I think at that point in time, and I don't know if the records have changed since then, but that was the biggest grossing film in Japan, like of all time, I think, essentially. It was basically ridiculously huge. And then I saw that they had done a dubbing, which I'm always a little skeptical about, because back in the day, sometimes they would fuck up dubs, but like they just had a fantastic cast. They had one of my favorite actors, even back then, Billy Crudup. They had Claire Danes, Billy Bob Thornton, Minnie Driver, Jada Pinkett Smith, Gillian Anderson, just a ton of people. And I was like, wow, I got to go make the trip up to New York. So I convinced my good buddy Daryl, and we made a day of it. Went to hit the comic book shops, grab some pizza, and we went to a little theater in the village called the Angelica. The Angelica is a haven for people that love foreign films, art films, the kind of films that you're just not going to get down in suburbia. And we saw this beautiful animated movie, and the basic premise, I'm sure most of you guys have seen this movie, but the story follows a young prince Ashitaka and his involvement between the gods of the forest and the humans who consume its resources. And I know it's a very light um, covering of that film. There's a lot more depth to that movie and a lot more to that movie, but that's the general premise. This movie's been out on Blu-ray for a while now, guys. First, it was released through Disney because at some point, Disney was releasing all of Miyazaki, the director Hayao Miyazaki's films. And now I think it's been released through G Kids. So there's a couple different releases of this film. It's a beautiful film, guys, and it was wonderful seeing it on the big screen. You know, for me, I know I've had this conversation online with a couple different people. We know movies have gotten expensive, guys. I get it. And then I know the way the movie theater system works, guys, is even though no one wants to hear this, realistically, even though the price of the ticket's gotten expensive, you have to really kind of buy something when you're there. Because if you don't buy something when you're there, food or otherwise, that's how they make the real money. And I get it. No one wants to spend, just for one person, you get a popcorn soda and a movie ticket, and you're probably talking $30 to $35 just for a medium popcorn, medium drink, and your ticket to go see a movie. But that said, there's just still something very incredible about seeing something up on the big screen. And yeah, not everything has to be seen on the big screen, but I'll tell you what, when you get something sweeping and epic and beautiful, um, it's amazing to see it on the big screen. This is one of those cases. I know Horizon, the new Kevin Costner film, a lot of people realize that movie got tanked, right? And I get it. They didn't promote it enough. A lot of people's comments were it could have made a better be made as a mini series instead of these 3 to 4 films that he's talking about. And I completely understand that argument. But on the same token, there's something beautiful again about seeing it on the big screen. It's hard to even put into words. Maybe that sounds like a cop out, guys. You could have a 75-inch screen TV with the surround system and this awesome setup, um, and that's awesome. But there's still something magical about being in a room full of strangers, even the obnoxious ones, and seeing something on the big screen. And Princess Mononoke is like one of those films. Um, Usually, if you keep an eye out, not everywhere, but they have a thing every year, usually where I think it's called the Ghibli Fest. And usually for about 3 or 4 months, they usually like once a month will show a different Miyazaki film. So like about a month or two ago, they showed Nausicaa Valley of the Wind, Porto Rosso. They showed these different films. You just got to keep an eye on the schedule, and that's the tough part. Like for me, my schedule doesn't always work with the times. But all that said, guys, Miyazaki is one of our greatest animators, and I absolutely adore him. I love everything he does. Um, so other than that, guys, I did watch. I just started rewatching on Hulu. I have the physical copies on DVD, but Ranma in One Half. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about that because what I think when we get closer to the remake, which is hitting Netflix, I think sometime in October, I want to say mid-October. By the way, the animation looks amazing. I'm going to probably talk about like the manga and maybe the first episode of the original series. Um, but so I did watch that. I did watch Twisters, which I thought was fun. I didn't bother writing any information on that, guys. Um, but I had a good time with it. It's a popcorn flick. It's by no means breaking any new ground, but I thought they did enough with it to make the movie interesting. It's a fun movie. I think everybody involved did a great job. Like I said, nothing groundbreaking. It's a popcorn flick. But honestly, let's face it, the original was a popcorn. It's a popcorn flick. You, my buddy used to say it's a bubblegum movie. You're chewing on it, not really looking for too much in the substance department. You're looking to just have a good time. You know what I mean? And there was a little bit of substance to it, but it's definitely worth checking out if you make it to the theaters. Um, I have that A-list pass through AMC, so for me, I think it's like 23 or 24 bucks a month if you do the AMC A-list pass. But if you go to see two movies, it does pay for itself. So it does make sense, for me at least. But I'm someone that loves going to the movies. So that all brings me to our feature film, which, like I said, guys, is the 1995 film The Star Maker by Giuseppe Tornatore. Like I said, this was his fifth film. Believe it or not, this film, while it did not win an Academy Award like Cinema Paradiso or some of his other films, it actually did get nominated for a Best Foreign Language Film. And it actually did win the Grand Jury Prize at the Venice Film Festival. So it does have a little clout. This guy, like I said, he really, I don't think he's ever made a movie that wasn't nominated for something. Even the lesser films that some people might call, or the ones that weren't an international phenomenon, because let's face it, no matter who you are as a filmmaker, even if you're Scorsese, not every film can catch on fire and become the next biggest thing. You know what I mean? But this film's still a really enjoyable tale, and I'm going to get into the story in a little bit. First, I'll tell you a little more about it. It was released in '96. It was his fifth film. Like I said, it's about an hour and 53 minutes. Like I went into on the last episode when I talked about the Legend of 1900. Um, Tornatore is a guy that has done Cinema Paradiso, which is his first. It's his second film. It's the first one to really just kick ass at the Oscars, winning Best Foreign Language Film. It really put his name on the map, and he's done stuff like Everybody's Fine, Pure Formality, like I said, The Legend of 1900, which I covered, Molina in 2000, and then in 2001 and 21 he did the Ennio documentary, which is also phenomenal because it's about his friend Ennio Morricone. Like I told you last episode, you can find that on Prime, guys, so check it out. Definitely worth your time. I couldn't find the budget of this thing, which is weird. I looked like Wikipedia, I looked at Internet Movie Database. I know it made a total of $371,000 at the box office, but I couldn't figure out how much it cost to make. Um, when we get on to our writers of the film, it was written by two people. It was written by Tornatore, who has co-wrote all of his films, along with a guy named Fabio Renato. Now, Fabio has done a bunch of stuff. He's starting off in like the early 50s. He did a movie called, and I'm gonna fuck up a lot of names here, guys. And whenever it's not English and I'm trying to forget about it, whether it's Japanese, Italian, French. Oh man, it's bad, guys. So I apologize for any Italian people or any people that are able to pronounce words properly. My fucking illiterate ass here is gonna start butchering some names. The first name I'm gonna butcher is in 1954. Fabio Renato, our co-writer, wrote a film called Sentio Annia Demone. Man, that really fucked out, guys. Really screwed the pooch on that. Then he would go on to make a film, write a film called Little Girls and High Finance in 1960. We did a film in '62 called Beach Casanova. And then he had like a long stretch, guys, where he didn't write anything. And then the next film would be Star Maker in '95. Um, but what's interesting is, besides being a screenwriter, he also had a career as an assistant director. And he did in '54, he did La Grande Adventura. Uh, he did The Assassin in 1961. My Son the Hero in 1962. So he's a multifaceted guy, guys. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Next up, we have our cinematographer, and that would be a guy named Dante Spinati. Now, what's interesting about Dante, he frequently works with Michael Mann and Brett Ratner. That's what he's primarily known for. And he actually first collaborated with Mann in 1986 on Manhunter. Um, Collaborated with Mann on Manhunter. There you go. And then years later, when they did the remake of Manhunter, Red Dragon in 2002, he'd worked with Brett Ratner. Um, he's been nominated for two Oscars, one in 2000 for The Insider, which my boys over at Not a Bomb covered a couple months back, and then in '98 for LA Confidential. So that's not too bad. And what's interesting about this guy is he started off his career in television, working on television. And then, like I said, he would do Manhunter in '86, Crimes of the Heart in '86 as well, Beaches in '88, Hudson Hawk in '91, Last of the Mohegans in '92, The Quick and the Dead in '95, Heat in '95, LA Confidential in '97, and then Wonder Boys in 2000. So, he's got a nice little pedigree. And I didn't go over his entire resume because he did a lot of stuff um, before he did the films in Italian television. And I didn't want to attempt to mispronounce 20 or 30 different titles that he might have worked on, guys. So I just gave you the highlights. Next up, we have our editor, who is a guy named Massimo Quaglia. Oh man, Massimo Quaglia. Oh man, guys, I don't even know why I even bother to attempt it. Well, anyway, our man Massimo, we'll just call him Massimo. I can probably get that part right. Um, his first film as an editor was actually The Star Maker. And what's interesting about him, besides doing that film, he would go on to do Molina, a movie called Five Moons Plaza in '98, Into the Labyrinth in 2019, and The Order of Time in 2023. So, he has a nice little pedigree. He's done a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Our music, of course, is our man Ennio Morricone. Now, I talked a little bit about Ennio Morricone before, obviously, when I talked about Legend of 1900. Some facts about Morricone that a lot of people don't know, or maybe you do, I don't know. At 87, Morricone became the oldest winner of a competitive Academy Award, guys. And then in 2016, for The Hateful Eight, yeah, he became became the oldest winner of a competitive Academy Award in 2016 for The Hateful Eight. In 2007, he was presented with a Lifetime Achievement Award for an honorary Oscar, and Clint Eastwood gave that to him, so that's pretty cool. The Star Maker was his fourth film working with Tornatore. He worked on all of his films except for The Professor, which was Tornatore's first film. So, like, that's pretty much our guys behind the scenes, guys. Next, I'm going to get a little bit into our main cast. Now, this cast is like 61 people, guys. There's a lot of people. I'm really only focusing, not that everyone's not important, but I'm focusing on the two people. Our main character, Sergio Castellito, our main actor, who plays Joe Morelli. And then I'm going to be talking about Tiziana Lodito, who plays Beta, the love interest. And these are our main two characters. And they're really the ones that I feel like are the primary focus, the ones that I should be focusing on. There's just too many other people to just get into everybody. Doesn't mean I'm going to gloss over them, but I'm not going to go through their internet movie database credits and just start listing. Just didn't make any sense. So Sergio Castellito is our lead. He plays our main character, Joe Morelli. And I'm going to give you a little bit of his history. He graduated from the Silvio National Academy of Dramatic Arts in '78, and he began doing public theater with plays like The Merchant of Venice. And then in '83, he began his film career working alongside Marcello Mastroianni in The General of the Army of the Dead. And then he went on from there to working in a movie called The Family in '87, The Big Blue in '88, Paris, I Love You in 2006. So people might know that one. Arthur and the Invisibles in 2006. And believe it or not, he was in a Chronicles of Narnia movie, The Chronicles of Narnia Prince Caspian in 2008. Excuse me for 1 second, guys. I'm going to take a little sip of my drink here. My throat's a little dry. All right. I have to take a little break every once in a while, guys. It's tough doing this solo, guys. I'm trying to rope some of you guys in to help me out, get a dialogue going, so you guys don't have to stare at this ugly mug for an hour, while I rant and try not to mess up along the way. But everybody's busy, which I understand. But I'm hoping I can rope you guys in, get some conversation going. I love having friends on to talk. But today you're stuck with me, guys, so deal with it or don't. I don't know, whatever. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, that's a little bit about our man Sergio Castellito. Now, that's just his acting stuff. The guy is a multi-talented guy because, like a lot of these guys I've been talking about, he also has a career of directing films. He's done a film called Libero Burro in '99. Don't Move that came out in 2004. Love and Slaps. I mean, he doesn't make like a movie called Love and Slaps, guys. That came out in 2010. Twice Born, which came out in 2012. You Can't Save Yourself Alone, which came out in 2015. Uh, Fortunata, which came out in 2017. And A Bookshop in Paris, which came out in 2021. So that is our main character. The secondary lead and love interest is Tiziana Lodito. Oh man, I'm really fucking these names up, guys. I'm telling you, she plays Beta. Now, The Star Maker was actually her first film in 1995. She was also on a movie in '96 called Italiano, on a movie in '99 called To Fly, a movie in 2002 called Salino, Lost Love in 2003, Handsome Anthony in 2005, and then back in 2019, she re-teamed up again with our man Giuseppe Tornatore in a movie, excuse me, called Barria. This was, like I said, this was her acting debut. A little bit of a controversy in this film because when she started filming it, she was only 17. Uh, Not a big deal. But at a certain point in the film, there required a couple scenes that required some nudity. At that point, she did turn 18, so completely legal. But you know how people are. Sometimes people kind of tend to focus on those things. I know back in the day, when the movie Train Spotting came out back in the late '90s. What did it come out? '97, '98, guys. And at the time, I remember people questioning one of the lead actresses, Kelly McDonald, because they thought she was underage. Now, they were incorrect. She was not underage. I believe she was actually like 19 or 20, but she just has a young look about her. But there was for years, there were rumors floating around about how she was only 17 when they did that film. And that film also has a couple scenes that were kind of graphic when it came to nudity. Um, this film has a couple scenes when it comes to her character. I don't think it's graphic, but it's not like ridiculously graphic. You can watch it, you know what I mean? And she was 18 when they filmed the scenes that involve nudity. So I don't know. Us Americans, I don't know how it is in the rest of Europe, but we're kind of Puritans, and I hate to say it, guys. We pick and choose our battles, and sometimes these battles are kind of weird. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're 18 and you want to do it, go do it. It's not porn; it's just a film. Um, this movie does have some scenes, like I said, some nudity scenes. There are some scenes that have some violence in them. Um, there's Other than that, though, it's not that bad, really. I definitely would recommend it to anyone that likes good films, guys. But anyway, I'm going to go into why later on. So when we get into the actual story now, guys, so it's 1953, and we're introduced to our main character, Joe Morelli. Uh, like I said, Joe Morelli is played by our man, who I just mentioned, Sergio Castellito. And Joe Morelli is this guy driving around in this big truck that's got all these titles and stickers on it saying Universal Studios of Italy. And essentially, Joe is a con man. He goes around all these little hick towns in Italy, Sicily in particular, and he's offering screen tests to the people of these different towns and for a fee. And he's basically promising them that if they agree to do these screen tests, oh, they'll do the screen tests, and then we're going to send it off to the studio, and they'll have the film developed, and you have a very good chance of starting a film career. He's basically a guy that right from the get go, you can just tell. You meet certain people, and you're like, there's something fishy about this guy. He just had that look, like he's a bit of a character, right? So it's pretty obvious, I think, even for people that don't pick up on these things right off the get go, that this guy is a con man. So that's his thing. He goes around from town to town trying to con people by offering this screen test, and he gets money doing it. And along the way, we realize that a lot of people like bare their souls. This guy. Um, we have one scene where this girl is in her late teens, early 20s, does the screen tests in his tent. And the next thing you know, she's unloading on him, telling him about how the line reminded her of, she's reading Gone with the Wind, reminds her that she just got knocked up by this guy who took off. And she starts breaking down and crying. And Joe is like, just forget about it. That's his attitude. Don't worry about it. Everything will work out fine. You know, uh, these people are giving a piece of themselves. It's 1953. World War II wasn't that far behind us. And a lot of these people are just grasping onto a hope, a dream. And when you want to believe in something, sometimes it's easier and we're more susceptible to believing in things. Um, and I think that's human nature for most people. And the people he meets in these different villages he goes to um, just kind of buy into this whole concept of this guy that's trying to sell them this dream, and they're all taken in by it. So it's hard to break this one down like I did with Legend of 1900. I know that film inside and out, and I felt super comfortable. I've seen this movie a couple. I've seen this movie more than a handful of times, so I know it pretty well. But it's also there's a lot of nuance in this film, so I'm not going to do a complete script breakdown, guys. I'm going to give you kind of like hit the certain marks, and then I'm going to highly recommend that you watch it because it's worth watching. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of people. Get back to the story here. Get it on, keep it in line, buddy. No, yeah, I just wanted to make that note. A little sidetrack for a second. Yeah, so a lot of people do bare their souls to this guy. I mean, as he's bouncing from these different town to town, he meets different characters. He meets one lady whose daughter, her daughter, her husband left her. He got sent to jail. He was abusive, and she can't afford to pay for the screen test. So basically, she ends up sleeping with our man Joe, and that's her payment. You know what I mean? Again, people are desperate. You know, um, on one instance, he's traveling to the next town, and he's stopped by a police officer, and the police officer is checking out the back of his truck, and he's like, "So where do you send these reels?" And he's like, "Oh, we send them to Italy, Rome." And he wants to see his license and all this thing. You think like he's getting ready to grill him, right? Like you think like he's about to get ready to bust him because he's maybe a little bit suspicious. Because anyone with any kind of intelligence might like investigate a little further, and especially like a police officer. But as he's opening this up and he's having this conversation with Joe, the police officer then again bears his soul to Joe, and he's like, I saw you back in that last town, and I couldn't say anything to you. Um, but this isn't the life for me, being a police officer. My father was a police officer. I want something more for myself. He's like, I've translated the works of Shakespeare, um, and I often read it and even practice it at home. And basically, the whole reason he pulled him over was so that he could get a test. He wanted his own shot at becoming a star. So Joe, of course, humors him, charges him a minimal fee, and the next thing you know, he's on his way. So Joe's, like I said, he's a smooth con man, and everybody's drinking his Kool-Aid, guys. You know, um, the next town he gets into, um, a dignitary has passed away, and they want him to film it. So everybody's grief stricken. And what does he do? When everybody's grief stricken, he agrees to do it. And people are just pouring money into his hand, and he just takes the money, takes the money. He's just like, yeah, I will take care of this. And, he puts on this formal air of dignity. And at this point, you guys, I'm like, well, you guys are probably asking yourself, okay, John, what the fuck? Why am I watching this movie? This guy sounds like a real shitheel, and he is, guys. He's a bit of a shitheel. Um, but it's also there's lots of fun moments sprinkled in. I know you're probably like, where are the fun moments, buddy? I don't see them, but there are a lot of fun moments sprinkled throughout the script and the movie. Um, and he's a very likable, despicable character. And you also, as the script goes on, you also realize that he's also doing this out of desperation. Like everybody else, the war wasn't that long ago, and he's just doing what he has to do to survive. I'm not justifying his moral code here. I'm just saying he's doing what he has to do to get by. We find out that Joe was someone that had immigrated over to America, and he worked for a film studio, I think as an extra. And then he basically was caught dealing uh, drugs to some of the crews and cast members, and they kicked him out and sent him back, deported him back to Italy. And again, I'm not trying to sympathize with this guy, but I am trying to show that there's a reason for some of his actions. Not trying to say, "Hey, way to go, Joe! You did a good job. You should keep up that up. Maybe you could have busted your ass like everybody else and did whatever they had to become a farmer or a regular working job that wasn't dishonest." But he didn't go that route. Instead, he got a hold of this truck uh, that was labeled with all this film equipment and had this studio thing on there. And he said, I could use this to calm people. So anyway, I'm derailing a little bit. I know that, guys. Back to the story. So he basically films this guy's funeral. He takes a ton of money from these guys to do that. And he just moves on to his next town. Now, this time, of course, there's all these little roadblocks along the way, different challenges that were like, oh shit, is this guy going to make it out? Because he probably deserves, this doesn't deserve to be a 3-act structure screenplay, guys. This deserves to be a 1-act. Just kill this guy. He's a piece of shit and be done with it. But no, there's a lot. The next stumbling block is he on his way from one town to the next, and he goes to take a piss. And lo and behold, next thing you know, he's got a gun at the back of his neck. Here we are. There's 3 Italian bandits, and they want to kill him and take everything. And he's like, "You don't want to do that. Look at those faces. Did anyone ever tell you what a wonderful face you have? I mean, you should be in the pictures." And they're like, "What the fuck are you talking about, buddy?" And they're like, "No, you have such distinctive features." And he's like, "Don't you understand? Look at my truck. I'm a person that works for the studio. I go around doing screen tests for people, and then I send them over, and then the next thing you know, you're going to be a film star." So these guys are the type of people that shouldn't be conned. But next thing you know, he's doing a screen test, and they're like, "Okay, we're going to let you go, but only because you promised to make us stars." And he's like, "Well, I can't just leave without getting paid, guys. I got to develop the film." And they're like, "Do you want to live? Because if you don't like fucking leave now, we're gonna kill you." And he's like, "You can kill me, but you're not gonna become big stars. I need the cost to develop films. Everything I do costs money, and I don't have a lira to my name." So the next thing you know, he's conning these bandits into giving him money so that he can make them film stars. Um, Again, like I said, there's a lot of these moments in the film, guys, where you're seeing this guy who should be getting he should be dipping his foot into the river of the ocean with piranhas and getting bit on every turn, but somehow he manages to avoid it. And it's It's almost like miraculous, miraculous, excuse me. I can make words today, I promise, guys. Um, but it's a fun journey. It's a really interesting, fun journey. And there's something compelling about our main actor. So this is where things get interesting. In our next town, he continues to do his normal routine. He gets to town, he sets up camp. In this town, there's a convent, and in this convent, we're introduced to our main female lead, Beta, and Beta, like I said, is played by Tiziana Laudato, whose name I'm horribly pronouncing. I'm sorry, Tiziana. Hopefully, you'll never see this, and so you can yell at me for mispronouncing your name, or hopefully you are singing. I don't know. It doesn't matter either way. But yeah. So we're introduced to Beta. Beta is a young girl. Like I said, she's in her late teens, um, and she's working at a convent. She's an orphan, and basically, the hey, listen, I'm not one to attack religion, guys, but in this particular convent, the nuns are kind of assholes. She's doing stuff like shaving their mustache and like on her hands and knees scrubbing floors. They kind of have her doing like this whole Cinderella thing, like she's pretty much, I wouldn't say a slave, but she's not too far removed, And I mean, I guess she should be grateful she has a place to live, but she's not very happy with things. That and she's also often taken advantage of in town. She has no way of real way of making money because she's working for this convent, but she's an attractive woman, and people in the town are aware of that. And like little dumb things, like she's a naive girl. She doesn't have an education. I wouldn't say she's stupid, but she doesn't have an education. Politely, she's ignorant. That's the best way to sum it. And like she sees this guy coming to town, this Joe Morelli character, and she thinks he's handsome. But at first, she's more intrigued to the idea of like just escaping this town where they take advantage of her. Like I said, she she has this one guy that he just wants to see her nude, and at first she's like, "Fuck you, I'm not doing that." But then, of course, the guy gives her money, and then she's able to afford the money she needs to do the screen test with Joe. Because at first, she approaches Joe, and Joe's like, "No money, no screen test." And she's kind of pissed, but then she realizes this pervert in town, if she takes off her clothes for him, not sleep with him, but just takes off her clothes, so he'll give him some money. Um, so she does it. But again, it's easy to jump on these people for doing things that we think are, some people might say, morally objectionable. I don't give a shit. Um, how you make a dollar is how you make a dollar. It's always been my philosophy. Who am I to judge anyone? Um, but more so in that particular time period with what these people are going through. Um, Given the context, I think people just do what they got to do. So she comes up with the money, and she does a screen test with Joe, and she's like, "Are you going to make me a star?" And he's like, "Yeah, well, it's out of my hands. Like, you have a pretty good chance. We'll send it off to Rome, and they'll develop the film, and then hopefully it'll turn into something wonderful. And next thing you know, you'll get a contract. Probably within a month or two." So he thinks everything's said and done, and you know he goes to leave the town, and at one point he stops and pulls the truck over because he thinks he hears like a noise in the back of the truck. So he opens the back of the truck, um, the wagon, and he opens it up, and of course she's dead. And he's like, "What are you doing? You can't be in the back of this truck." And she's like, "Oh, I thought I'd go with you, and that way I wouldn't have to wait a month or two." And he's like, "No, that's not the way it works." She's like, "Oh, come on, I'll take care of you. I'll cook for you. I'll clean for you." And you could see this guy's a bachelor. He's in probably his early 30s. He's kind of like doing his own thing. He doesn't want any baggage. She's like, "I'll show you these," and the next thing you know, she's pulling out her tits. And keep in mind, this is what people in town, some of the town people, they thought she was attractive, and this is how they treated her. So she just figured, oh, maybe this will work. He's not buying it. He's like, "Listen, you can't do this. That's not proper." He's like, "Listen, I'm going to take you back to town." So he takes her back to town, and he goes on his way, and we figure, oh, that's the last we're going to see of Beta. She was just a little minor character that shows up here and there. not the case. He goes on to the next town, and it's like this abandoned, desolate village. There's only like 5 or 6 people. You have this guy that used to own everything in this town, um, but now it's been destroyed, and he's a little bit off. And then you have his wife, and his wife invites them to stay for the evening, and she kind of gives them the tour and explains what happened during the war and how things got destroyed. Um, and then she puts the moves on, and she starts making out with our main guy, and he's like, "But your husband?" She's like, "Ah, don't worry about him," you know. So Joe is, he's a ladies' guy. He's like, "Sure, why not?" Um, he has dinner with the husband and the wife, and he gets to know them both a little bit. The next thing you know, he wakes up the next morning, and his truck is gone. His whole this whole con, his way of making money is has disappeared. So um, he travels to the next town and tries to figure out what he can do. In the meantime, we go back to Beta. She's back in her hometown, and the nurses at the convent won't take her back. She's like, "Oh, you want to go with the movie man? You go to the movie man. You go find him." So she leaves the town, and along her journey, she sees the truck, and she's like, "Oh, Joe, Joe, wait for me!" And of course, Joe's not on the truck. Um, so this is where things start to get interesting. Everybody has their comeuppance, if you will, guys. There's that whole karma thing in life, guys, and of course, eventually, what ends up happening is Joe um, is sought out by the police officer who he did the screen test for earlier in the movie, and Joe is basically put on trial and arrested, and he's made to be a fraud that he is. Right before that, I should backtrack. He does catch up and meet Beta, and Beta confesses her love for him and how she wants to take care of him. And he thinks, okay, maybe this girl's got a good heart and maybe he can kind of make something work. So there's a little bit of a connection there. And you can see this girl, at this point, the girl doesn't realize he's a con man. You can see that she has feels something for him. Um, so they make love. He feels like maybe they can make something with this. Then, of course, things spiral. He's arrested by our police officer. Um, he's basically put on trial and he's sentenced to jail for 2 years. And from there, um, he served his term. He gets out, and believe it or not, he is able to get his truck back. And he goes looking for Beta because he realizes everything else is gone from his life. He spent 2 years in jail. His life's a mess. Um, but he has his truck, and he realizes that girl really cared for him and he really loved him. And he was an idiot for taking advantage of her. So he goes to seek her down, and he travels far and wide, and he can't find her. Then finally, because he goes to a lot of places where he can't his people. They're not going to help him. Excuse me, guys. And he gets this one town, and he's asking around, and nobody wants to help him. But this young girl comes up to him, and she's like, "Oh, you mean the girl that was with you? Yeah, she's in the asylum." And he's like, "The asylum?" And the girl gives him directions, and basically points him to the direction of a mental asylum. And he gets there, and he finds Beta, and he's able to talk to her, but she doesn't recognize him as Joe. She's like, "No, you're not Joe. My Joe is dead. He died." So Joe realizes he's not getting through to her. He's like, something's just not connecting the pieces. She's just not recognizing me. So he goes, "Oh no, you're right. I'm Joe's friend, and Joe just wanted to tell you that he is alive and he loves you, and he's going to make some money and he's going to come back for you and get you." Um, so that's what it ends with. Like he realizes that how damaged she became when he was arrested and put in jail. She thought he died, and she just had like I guess, a mental break, if you will, from reality. And he realizes the impact um, he's had. Now, I'm not saying we should forgive Joe, guys. But I think Joe's had this turnaround in his character where he realized, you know what, like, hey, I really hurt a lot of people. Um, I took advantage of people and I didn't think twice about it. But then I had this girl that genuinely connected with me and loved me and cared about me. Um, and she'd do anything for me. And I just fucked it up. Um, I took advantage of her. And now it had such an impact on her that she's definitely out of sorts. She's not there. So the movie ends on a kind of a sour note, if you will, or a sad note. Um, and that's essentially our movie, guys. And I'm glossing over things a little bit. Like I said, with Legend of 1900, like I said, I know I shouldn't be talking about one from last week, but I know that movie inside and out. And it's a little bit more easier to break down the script. This one's a little more difficult. I know it seems like it wouldn't be, but there's a lot of nuance in this film. Um, and there's a lot going on. So it's kind of hard to do a beat by beat script breakdown. But I will say this much, guys. This film is, like I said, it's very overlooked. Like I said, it's very easy to watch the film and pass judgment on this guy, and just look at it as like, oh man, this guy's a piece of shit. He deserves what he gets, and he does. But there's also a little more. It's a little more deeper than that, and the character does have a redemption arc. And it's a really compelling story. It really is. There are lots of funny moments in the movie, despite the fact the guy's kind of a heel. Um, and you do see the love between these characters. And of course, you've got all the technical stuff, guys. You've got, like with any of the Tornatore films, if you guys have seen anything by Giuseppe Tornatore, um, that I've talked about, um, you've got beautiful cinematography, you've got wonderful editing, you've got a great score by Morricone. I mean, I was just listening to this score in Legend of 1900 earlier, and you know what, guys? Just the scores alone, you can just listen to, and they're so epic and sweeping. Morricone is just, I mean, he's a magician when it comes to music. But Tornatore does something I think few filmmakers are able to do. Um, he's able to give you the drama. He's able to give you the comedy. He's able to hopefully give you a redemption arc. He does something that's just talks about the human spirit. Um, the best analogy I can compare him to in its own way is he's very comparable, in my opinion, to Frank Capra. Um, Maybe a little bit darker in some aspects, but he has that perfect balancing of drama and comedy, um, human compassion. There's all these different elements, and it just reminds me of like a modern day Frank Capra. I'm for one, I'm a huge fan of Frank Capra, and I don't think anyone's besides Tornatore. There's only I can't think of too many people that have managed to capture some of the magic that Capra's captured back in the day. With I mean, obviously, I could go into Capra, but I don't have all my notes on Capra. But you can't take it with you. Lost Horizon, It's a Wonderful Life. People know him from It's a Wonderful Life. If you're your average film goer, you know him from that. But I think a lot of people um, don't know some of his other wonderful films. And yeah, Tornatore, I see a lot of parallels between him and Capra. And I definitely say, guys, this is one that you should definitely check out. It's like I said, I can't say enough good things. Like I said, the arc is there is some darkness to it, guys. And you might not like this guy at some point, maybe even from the beginning. But I think that some of the stuff he's doing, although just some of it's kind of horrible and despicable, it is done in a humorous way. And there is a character arc. Is it the best Tornatore film I've ever seen? No, I don't know which one that is, guys. I go back and forth. I love Legend of 1900, so I was so excited to talk to you guys about that last week. I love Molina. I love obviously Cinema Paradiso. But there are so many good ones, even like stuff like The Best Offer, which is another movie he did in English with Jim Sturgis and Jeffrey Rush, and that's another fantastic film that people don't really talk about. Or in 2009, Barria, which is also another very personal film. That was great. There's a lot of films that are just underseen. I feel like in America here, a lot of his films just don't get pushed enough. Like The Legend of 1900, that should have gotten a huge theatrical release. Um, Molina is a fantastic film that should have gotten a much bigger release. I think most of his films, but I think that's just foreign films in general. I think in general our society I think has become a lot more accepting and open to foreign films, especially with Netflix and the streaming services that we have available. It's just become more of a normal thing, and the fact that there's a lot of films that offer an English dub for people that are lazy. But at the time these films were released, um, they weren't playing at your local multiplex. They were limited release. And I think at that time, there was still a huge audience that just doesn't want to do subtitles. I think like I love my parents to death. And I think my mom would probably do subtitles if if she had no other option and I really highly recommended a film. But I don't think she'd go out of her way if she was given a film with English language before subtitles. And I think there's a large part of, at least in America, that's their preference. But here's what I'm going to say, guys, and most of you guys are film lovers, so I probably don't even need to tell you this. Whether it's got subtitles or not, or it's in English or not, good filmmaking is good filmmaking, and that transcends pretty much everything, you know. And Giuseppe Tornatore is a good filmmaker, guys. He's great. So yeah, that ends my episode on the Star Maker. Like I mentioned earlier, you can find this full movie on YouTube. You can find it on eBay if you don't mind DVD, fairly inexpensive. Not super cheap, but not ridiculously expensive. Um, no Blu-ray release, unfortunately. Um, Definitely a filmmaker to check out, though, guys. If you haven't explored the filmography of Giuseppe Tornatore, I haven't seen a film of his that I've been disappointed by. So check out more of the works of films of Giuseppe Tornatore. And I haven't decided what I'm going to be talking about next week, guys, as far as films. I have a couple ones in mind that I'm thinking about, but I haven't narrowed it down yet. So I will let you know as soon as I come up with an answer for you. I'm also going to try to do another comic book review. If you guys enjoyed that graphic novel I covered last week, Stone Star, last week I covered the first two issues. I'm thinking about covering issues 3 and 4 this week. So that's just an idea. It's not set in stone. Um, Guys, if you like what you're hearing, do me a huge favor. I would love it so much. If you are a fellow podcaster, share my stuff on your page, um, just to get it out to your audience. If you're just a regular viewer that you found me through Facebook or TikTok, um, and you like the videos, please get the word out there. I'd love to build an audience. Building an audience is the most important thing, but I do like to know that I'm reaching people and connecting with people, and hopefully people are liking what they see and hear. Even though you got to put up with this mug right here, I'm hoping you like and see you're seeing and hearing what you're hearing. I'm definitely trying to would love to build an audience, a bigger audience. I'm so grateful for everyone that is here. Um, but yeah, please spread the word. Um, if you guys see my videos and you're like, hey, I had a different opinion on that film, or I think you suck, or I think you're wonderful, either one. Um, Leave a message in the comments section. You can also reach me at Facebook Messenger. So definitely reach out to me. If there's something in particular that you guys think I should be talking about on my channel, um, reach out to me. If you want to join me for an episode, guys, reach out to me. I'm all about it. Um, but share the love, guys. Get this out there. Let's see if we can try to build an audience together and have some interesting conversations about some really cool films. So yeah, that's what is on the horizon for right now. More than likely Stone Star for the world of comic books. Like I said, movies I'm not 100% sure about, but I will definitely have something of each, hopefully by the end of the next week. Um, so now, guys, I'm going to give you a shout out to all the podcasts that you guys should be listening to. First off, I'm going to talk to you guys about Troy and Brad over at Not a Bomb. Troy and Brad every week do something great, guys. They talk about a movie that was either a commercial or critical failure, and they determine whether or not it deserves the title of bomb. They do a really in-depth discussion. Last week they did Land of the Lost, and it was great. I love Will Ferrell. He's hit or miss for some people, but I think he's great. It was a fun episode. They had my buddy Jose from Watch Skip Plus was there along for the ride. And then this week they're doing the Indiana Jones movie, the newest one, Dial of Destiny. Now I haven't seen Dial of Destiny, not because I was like some people that are like, fuck that movie. I just didn't get around to watching it, and I still haven't. But it's Indiana Jones, so of course I'm gonna check it out. I'm very curious. Also, something else cool with Not a Bomb, if you like their podcast, and you should because they're awesome. They have just set up some merchandise where they're selling T-shirts on T Public, and I got this cool one as a birthday gift from my better half, and I'm trying to give you guys a good view here. But it's a pretty killer shirt, and I love it. It was a very unexpected birthday gift from my wonderful fiance, and if you just go to T Public, they have a bunch of different designs. I'm hoping to pick up some more when I'm less poor, because I like this one a lot. And plus, it'll give me an excuse to probably pick up some other shirts from T Public. So check out that as well with the Not a Bomb guys. Of course, I have my good buddy Jose with Watch Skip Plus. Him and Alex do the Lord's work, and every weekend they talk about films that are being released currently in theaters. They pick a film and they discuss whether you should watch it, skip it, or fuck it. The hell with it, you know? Not fuck it. No, serious. I'm joking about that. But and then they also have a plus section of their podcast, and with the plus section, they talk about something new in their life. It might be something like a new product they're trying out, a new book they've seen or read, or maybe a new film they've watched. You know, it could be anything. It could be a piece of technology. But that's Jose and Alex, and they're Watch Skip Plus. So definitely check them out. Of course, I'd be remiss without mentioning the godfathers of podcasts, my buddies Will and Sam over at the Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema. Will and Sam are just amazing. These guys really inspire, I think, a lot of different podcasters. They've been doing it. I think they're up to like episode 700 and something. God bless them, man. I can't even imagine how you go from one to 700. But each week they just talk about really great films. And they cover such a wide breadth of stuff, guys. They cover um, some interesting stuff, a lot of stuff from the 70s, some stuff from the 60s, foreign films, American films, European films. They cover it all. And sometimes it's something mainstream, like Point Break. And then other times it'll be this movie from the 70s, which I'm like, well, I didn't even like last week. I think it was the Day of the Locust they covered. Movie that came out in the 70s, apparently bombed with Donald Sutherland. And I'm like, wow, well, I love Donald Sutherland, so it sounds like it's a solid flick. I got to check it out. Um, they really do a fantastic job, and I'm hoping one of these days I can get them on the show. Hint, hint, Will, Sam. I'd love to have you guys on, but I'm hoping I can rope them into joining me for an episode. Um, so definitely check them out. And then I would go into Raiders of the Podcast. Kevin, Dave, and the rest of the boys over at Raiders, they are another great podcast. And what's good about Raiders is these guys are madmen. Okay, let's just say it, guys, you're madmen. They cover like at least two films every episode. There have been cases where they've covered 3 to 4 films. And that doesn't happen often, but even 2 films, and they duke it out. They determine which is the better film. Um, and it's cool because you're getting more than one film. Um, Good stuff. I love them. Great show. And then, of course, Kevin does his little thing on YouTube every week where he talks about all the stuff that we should be buying and spending our money on because he does what he's reading, what he's watching. And this motherfucker, pardon my French, I say that in the most loving way, Kevin. You have all this shit and you're like, oh, we just bought this, this, and this. And I'm like, I didn't know that existed. Now I need to buy it. What the fuck, man? You trying to drain me dry here? No, I'm busting your chops, Kevin. You know that. But yeah, no, it's really good. A lot of fun. I also have been remiss to mention Caliber 9 from Outer Space. These guys are another podcast. Um, and these guys also cover 2 films. And last week, pardon me, Sammy was on Caliber 9 from Outer Space. And they talked Bad Boy Bubby, and I can't remember the name of the other movie. And they have a little discussion. They usually like an A movie and a B movie, and it's another really fun podcast. I'm going to mention one more podcast because this isn't people that I know this podcast, anyone involved in the podcast, but I did stumble upon a podcast. Um, Someone mentioned it, and it's on Spotify. I found it. It's called Script Apart. And I'm big. Listen, I like a lot of movies that are dumb and stupid, and maybe you don't need a fantastic story. But I do like script heavy stories, movies. I like good dialogue. I like a good foundation for a story. So, Script Apart is a podcast, and each week the host, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head, so I apologize, host. um, he interviews screenwriters. So he had Mike Flanagan on a couple weeks ago for Doctor Sleep. Um, he's had a bunch of different people on there, different screenwriters. Like I think he had Ivan Reitman on at one point, way back when. He's had a ton of different people, and basically, it's great because they talk about the career of the screenwriter, and then they usually talk about one or two of their projects they've worked on. So those are some podcasts you guys should be listening to. And that's episode 40 for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the ride. Like I said, if you like this, please, guys, subscribe, comment, and share. I want to get the word out there, guys. Get some more people into the cult of now for something a little bit different. Also, next month, guys, we're going to be doing my second in my Spotlight series. Jose and Justin are going to be back, and we're going to be talking yet another Oliver Reed film. This was picked by Justin, and it's Hannibal Brooks. You can find Hannibal Brooks currently on, I think, Amazon Prime. So if you have Prime, you can watch it for free. And if you want to pick up physical media, you want to support physical media, definitely check out the website Hamilton Books, because this is a Kino Lorber movie. Normally goes for I think 24, 25 bucks. You can find it on Hamilton Books, the Blu-ray with a ton of extra features, and I think it's like $6. So definitely check that out. So that's it for now, guys. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for listening. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. I will see you soon, okay?